was out of the woods now. His fever gone, he was almost up and about. "Welcome back, brother," said Kevin. He had avoided conflict over the years, living in harmony with nature, but his Uncle Ben was fond of saying, "A Bergson would forget how to walk before they forget how to fight."
Children of Morta is finally out after 4 years of development following a successful Kickstarter. And this game has some amazing aesthetics, as you saw in the previous part, with good gameplay to boot, and it is definitely a case where the sum is greater than the parts. But it doesn't go as far as I would like in terms of its roguelike design, but we'll come back to that in a few minutes. The story follows the family Bergson, who are basically just the equivalent of the roguelike family, and they are guardians of their world, and when evil corruption threatens to take over, it's up to the able-bodied warriors of the family to go out and save everybody. So the game itself is played real time, as you see here. The environments appear to be handmade, but each level is procedurally stitched together. And your objective is to reach the end of each biome where there will be a unique boss fight, which you will then have to defeat to then move on or unlock the next. Each family member is their own unique character. They have sets in terms of their attacks, special abilities, health and armor, and so on. Right now, if you do pick up the game, it features co-op for 2 players, and there are heavy rumors or heavy hope that they will make it online at some point. But the progression of the game follows. As you defeat enemies, you'll gain experience for each individual member that you're controlling, and you'll also pick up gold, or I think it's called Morta, in this game, that is used later on, and we'll come back to that in a minute. When you level up a character, each one has a specific skill tree that they'll go up, and has a very great touch, and something that I do appreciate, that each character gets a family buff when they hit certain level thresholds, keeping with this theme that the family supports each other and wants to make sure everyone is at their best. But within each skill tree, you'll eventually get access to 2 special abilities, a Fury mode, which is kind of like their ultimate, and you'll also unlock passives that can augment them. Later on in the game, you'll unlock the ability to find runes, which are basically skill modifiers that can show up in the middle of a campaign. If you die during a level, or quote-unquote die, you'll be returned back to the family home, and characters who are used too often will confer a quote-unquote corruption sickness, which is kind of the way of the game saying that you should switch between other characters instead of just playing as one. Now, from a moment-to-moment standpoint, the game is fast in terms of its combat. You will most likely be assaulted by multiple enemies at all times, and the game does like to throw in epic and champion variants of enemies just to really mess with you. Within the individual dungeons themselves, you'll find story quests that can unlock bonuses, additional items, etc., as well as little mini-challenges and relics, which act as passive benefits that last until the end of that dungeon. And those passives can mean a very big deal, giving you additional AoE in close range, lifesteal, attack speed, all that good stuff that we've come to know and love from roguelikes. And at that point, Children of Morta is a great game. But like I said at the start, I think the game does have a few issues in terms of its late game and kind of keeping the momentum going for hours on end. So, we're going to do a quick shout out to our current Game Wisdom patrons and supporters, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the issues I ran into later on in the game. And now for a quick thank you to our current Game Wisdom sponsors and Patreon supporters. And if you'd like to continue the discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, linked down below. As I said in the last part, the game features a persistence system in the form of the home here. After each play or each run through, you'll be able to take your accumulated money and spend it on permanent passive upgrades at the Book of Rhea, as well as Ben's workshop. These add bonuses such as increased damage, armor, as well as unique passives such as increased money find, experience, and so on and so forth. And the game is definitely designed around you getting these upgrades to stand any chance. Leveling up each Bergson does not affect their stats. There's no kind of leveling gate in this game. So if you want to take somebody that you've only played up to level 2 into the final encounter, you can certainly do that. As long as they have passives, they can usually hold their own. But this does raise a few issues I have with the game. So the first one is that once you've unlocked all 6 members of the Bergsons as well as the passives and such, there really isn't anything else in terms of progression. And at that point, the game just kind of starts to become a grind of you having to take each character into the worlds or into each level, trying to level them up, and just doing what you can on that front. And some of you watching this will probably get stuck at a few of the bosses. And that comes in mind with how the game is designed for each character. Because Children of Morta was designed around a co-op experience, it means that certain members of the family are clearly better in a support role rather than being the main character. Lucy and what was his name? I always forget. Joey. There you go. For people watching who watch the live stream know how trouble it was for me to remember that name. But some of these characters seem to have trouble when it comes to just essentially holding their own. Lucy can only fire her attacks while standing perfectly still. She has the lowest health. And basically, it's very easy for her to get wiped out if you're not paying attention. While Joey attacks very slow and has the highest damage. But in a game that's all about moving around and avoiding hits, he's kind of at a disadvantage when it's by himself. And this is a similar issue where we ran into when we played that game, Full Metal Furies. That the sniper class was amazing with a group, but if you try to play that game solo, good luck. And this also takes into account, or in terms of the design of Children of Morta, the boss battles. The bosses themselves are all unique enemies, and they're fixed in terms of when they'll show up in the campaign. And some bosses are clearly designed to counter specific strategies or specific Bergsons. One boss fight in particular that should be showing up on the screen right now is a battle with an enemy who could just keep throwing out an AoE blast at close range, and there was just no way for my melee character to get out of the way, even when I was doing a dodge. Now, the patriarch of the family gets a shield that does allow him to block certain attacks, and he's kind of like your all-around great character. But I ran into a battle, which I don't have footage of here, with a boss fight where the character basically surrounds the floor with damage over time effects, and any melee character is at such a huge disadvantage that you would be crazy not to take range in for that fight. And again, this isn't a big problem when you have 2 players, one who can provide backup and the other one kind of tanking or drawing the enemy. But when you're trying to play the game solo, it does create some frustrating areas. Now, with that said though, I did beat Children of Morta all the way through by myself. And if you look on the channel, there should be my final boss video up at this point, and that's of course entirely spoiler. But it can become a little tiresome to play the game if you're trying to play this all in like a weekend or with a high amount of play in a short run. The levels themselves just don't offer enough in terms of variance in order to make them feel different. Enemies and encounters are locked to their specific biomes, and while the story quests are nice, they are still fixed events. How one plays out the exact same way every time you encounter it. And the game does feel very light in the quote-unquote roguelike category. But with all that said, though, I still really enjoyed this game. As I said, it's definitely greater than the sum of its parts. The story is amazing. I love this pixel aesthetic in the animation. And I hope that this isn't the last we see of the Bergson, or the Bergson family. And maybe we'll get another one in the future. But if you're looking for a really great action game, and especially if you have co-op online, definitely give this one a check. And if they do make it online at some point, that should elevate this game even further. But with all that said, I would like to thank the developers for giving me a press key to look at this one. I definitely enjoyed it. Be sure to check out the other videos we have or streams of it on the channel, and let me know what you think in the comments below. But otherwise, if you let me tackle your game in the future, please don't hesitate to get in touch and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Once again, this has been Children of Morta, and I will see you next time for another discussion on game design. If you're looking for a book on design, my first title, 20 Essential Games to Study, is out now. It is available where most books are sold, and it comes in paper, hardcover, or digital copies. This is the perfect book for anyone interested in learning about game design, whether you are a student, enthusiast, or just a fan. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoy things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel link down below where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.